So I'm going to let everybody come into the room now. We have our webinar today. Walking on Pins and Needles author, Arlene Faulk. We're very, very excited to have you here. As people are coming in, I want to kind of just let people settle in before we really get started. If, as you're coming into the room, notice at the bottom of your screen that you can, there's a Q&A, but there's also a chat. And if you have questions, I actually want you to use the chat, and we'll get to them if it's appropriate. We'll get to them during the time we're talking. But if not, we will have some time at the end for questions. So as you're listening to what we're talking about with Tai Chi, think about maybe some questions, and then use the chat as if you want to raise your hand and ask a question. So I'm Dianne Bailey, the creator of the Open the Door to Tai Chi system. And my guest today is Arlene Faulk, and she is a speaker, she's an author, she's a Tai Chi instructor, and she has a wonderful story to tell us. And she actually wrote it in her memoir, Walking on Pins and Needles. There we go, got it now, Walking on Pins and Needles. And I love the tagline at the bottom, a memoir of chronic resilience in the face of multiple sclerosis. And chronic resilience is such a wonderful phrase that we will explore some in this webinar. Arlene, thank you for coming. I really appreciate you being my guest today for our Healthy Aging webinar.
Thank you so much, Dianne. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I love talking about Tai Chi and my story. And also thank you to the participants who are joining us today for their curiosity and wanting to join in with us.
You know, what I'm going to start with, we are going to get to Arlene's story, which is really extremely interesting and inspiring. But what I want to show first, I'm actually going to share my screen. And what I'm going to do here is pull up some studies of Tai Chi that show how much Tai Chi is actually helping people with MS. It's like I was telling Arlene earlier, it's not just Arlene that has benefited from Tai Chi. This is well studied, and the benefits are huge. This study here, participants enrolled in the Tai Chi had better balance, better gait and flexibility, less fatigue and depression. We'll talk a lot about that, and a better quality of life after the intervention. The results indicate that Tai Chi is likely safe and may provide physical and psychosocial benefits in individuals with MS. The next study talked about the effectiveness of Tai Chi on improving the quality of life and the functional balance in MS patients. You know, that functional balance is very important. We're moving in our everyday life, and with MS, that movement can be very compromised. So it's important that this study showed that Tai Chi actually did help with that functional balance. It also showed improvements in quality of life, emotional well-being, energy, overall quality of life. All of those things are important. This study showed, actually brought up the idea, and we'll get back to it as we talk, that fatigue is very debilitating at times with MS. And I know that Arlene experienced that. And it's interesting that Tai Chi has been proven to provide fatigue relief in patients with breast cancer and rheumatoid arthritis. And that's why they were studying it with fatigue in MS patients. And patients with MS experience a wide array of symptoms, including balance problems, mobility impairment, fatigue again, and depression. And this study showed that the Tai Chi group showed significant, consistent improvements in balance, coordination, depression relative to the training as usual group. So I just wanted to show those studies because I feel like it's important to know that while, yes, this is a memoir, and I actually do want you to buy that book, I want you to read Arlene's whole story. And yes, it's her story, but her story falls into this whole array of study that Tai Chi is helping people with MS, helping them with their mobility, helping them with their balance, their gait, with their fatigue, with their depression. So, Arlene, I want you to tell us your story, but the first thing that I want you to talk about, and we'll go backwards in time. Right now, we're going to go forwards in time. You've been a Tai Chi instructor for years and years, which is awesome. And the whole reason that we titled this webinar, Tai Chi is not an aspirin. I want you to tell me that moment in time as an instructor that idea came to your head.
Okay, yes, that's not a phrase that you would normally hear, and I find it to be an interesting story. And I've been teaching Tai Chi for a number of years, and one of the things that I learned in my journey and with Tai Chi is it takes some time to learn moves. They're not familiar to people, and to feel some effects. One of the first things I hear people say after a few Tai Chi classes, they sleep better. That's pretty common. But in terms of what you mentioned in the research studies, et cetera, sometimes that can take some time. And in my own story, it did take quite a bit of time. So that as background, I have all kinds of students come into class, and a woman came into class, a new student to me, and she had done Tai Chi, I think, for a couple of years, and the instructor moved out of town, and she came and she told me right away she had bad arthritis in her knees. And so she wanted to take Tai Chi to help that arthritis. It was getting worse. It was the second or third class that she was in the middle of class in front of everybody. She said, you know what, I'm not really feeling any difference yet. When is Tai Chi going to help my knees? And so it stopped. I stopped the class. And what I told her, it takes time when you're working with your own body. That woman wanted a Tai Chi aspirin. She wanted something, as we think in terms of medicine, where we take the pill and then the headache disappears or the arthritis gets better. And it's just not, like that. It's very slow, and it can be a while and quite a while before people notice difference in terms of how they feel or even in their arthritis. Tai Chi is very good for arthritis, but it takes time.
And I love that story. Tai Chi is not an aspirin. We actually have to put the work in as we do our Tai Chi. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Arlene, what I want you to do now is just give us a brief history of what happened to you and how you realized that you had to put the work in, and that as you did put the work in, Tai Chi really started to help you.
Okay. And I agree so much with what you're saying, that we do have to put the work in and be as diligent and persevere as much as we can. Briefly, my story is that 3 months after I graduated from college and I'm starting first job in my career, I'm very excited about being in a corporation as a management trainee. In one afternoon, I lost all the feeling from my waist down. So that was scary. I didn't know anybody in the area. I was in Minneapolis. I wasn't close to home. Had tests, had CT scans, spinal tap, went through tests. I will just say, so that your audience knows, that MRI did not exist as a test available for people at that time. And this was in the 70s. So I was young and, ready to go. It took about 3.5 months, and I wasn't able to continue that job because I hadn't built up time off and sick leave enough. So anyway, I ended up going to graduate school and had very few symptoms of until about 9 years later, I started to have symptoms where my ankles would be weak. I had trouble walking, and a lot of trouble walking with my balance. My balance was very off. I had to use a cane. I ended up using a cane over a period of time for 15 years to get across the street. And I was living in New York City, so it was really a challenge getting across the street and trying to figure out how to do that. I kept going. For me, I was rising in the corporation, aspiring. It was a time when there weren't many women in management, and I was one of them, and I was doing very well. So for me, it was mind over matter. I just kept pushing through and pushing through until I couldn't anymore. I had an opportunity to come to Chicago for the corporation. I worked for United Airlines and the corporate headquarters here in Chicago. And there was an opportunity, and you learned that at a certain point, if you say no to the opportunity, then that might be the last opportunity that you get. And it was a great one to develop a whole new department. So I started doing that, and off and on, I would have problems. I did not say anything at work about what I was going through. I didn't know, what it was for many years. As I said, they treated it with prednisone. Oral prednisone is what they had at the time. There were no injectionable drugs. And it was 21 years later, after that afternoon, I lost all my feeling from the waist down, that I had a diagnosis through an MRI, which was multiple sclerosis. So I kept going until one day I was in my office, fatigue absolutely overwhelmed me. I could barely stand up, sit up. Somehow I made it home and into my condo, and I thought, lay down on my couch, and I thought, okay, here's another hurdle. I'll get through this somehow. It's going to be a couple of weeks, and I'll figure out what to do. And I laid on my couch for 2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So somebody said to me not too long ago, well, I can't imagine 2 years. I thought, well, I couldn't either. It's really unfathomable to think about that. And looking back, that it was 2 years. I didn't know what to do. All of my skills of decision-making, leadership, analytical skills, it just did not help at all. And through a series of events and friends influencing me, I got connected with a very gifted healer. Took me a while to call her. I was skeptical. I'm from a Western medical family, and she was involved with Chinese medicine, which I didn't know anything about at all. But I did call her, started the journey with her. She recommended Tai Chi, and I started Tai Chi, also not knowing what that was. And I had to do Tai Chi in a chair for the first year and a half. Wow. Did the movements in the chair as best as I could. In the practice the walking, I used the wall to help me stand up when I wasn't able to. And I regained my health. Through Tai Chi, I got off all medication. I regained my ability to walk, and I enjoy the health that I do today. So I am today much healthier than I was when I was in my late 20s and 30s and into 40s. It's really fascinating that I would not have imagined, but it was some perseverance. And there were times I thought, is Tai Chi helping or this? And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna continue. I don't know, but it was important to say, I like the idea of energy and trying to get better balance. So I stuck with it. And then I had the opportunity to teach, and I've been doing that for 20 plus years.
Arlene, it's amazing that you think about when you say all of your skills, all of the things that you had built up with this executive experience, it meant nothing when you're faced with lying on your couch and not being able to move and not being able to know, what do I do with this body that's not acting like the way I want it to?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And
right.
And that word of, like I pointed out on your book cover, chronic resilience, that's where putting that work in as you started your Tai Chi, of sitting in a chair first and learning not only movements, but learning principles. And that's where you and I are really on the same page with our Tai Chi, in that, yes, it is a challenge to learn new movements, and they're good for you. These movements are very good, but understanding those underlying principles is really what provides that path to healing, that path to understanding your body, being able to use your body again in the way that it says, yes, I can do this now because you're not fighting me, right?
Right.
And one of the principles, one of the 10 essentials of Tai Chi is it talks about internal and external are united. And I think about, in the world of Tai Chi, when we talk about internal martial arts, this is your Tai Chi. It's a meditative kind of movement. External martial arts or my Taekwondo, they're harder, faster, they're more focused on muscle. Internal is not. Internal is focused on that energy. And when it talks about internal and external being united, my first thought in your story was, as you learned your Tai Chi, you weren't fighting your body anymore. Your internal and your external became united, and therefore you could move forward. I mean, can you speak to that feeling just a little bit?
That's a really good insight, because if you'd say internal, external when I was starting Tai Chi, I really wouldn't know. Of course, I would go to the intellectual where my comfort zone was and not know what that was. So Tai Chi has been a process of letting go. And that's what Tai Chi is, more about letting go than trying harder. I use that in class because people do try harder or try to imitate the teacher, do what the teacher's doing. And so I say, listen to your own body, learn the principles. If you learn the principles, then you can apply them to their own body. I'm going to answer and go back just a second. It might be helpful for your listeners to know what it was. A real key, Tai Chi is helpful in paying attention because it brings you to the moment where you're paying attention to where your weight is. And when you say the internal, external, well, how are you feeling? You're going to do a little check in terms of, you might be sleepy, you might be have a arthritic pain, things are going on. And then in the external, well, where are you? You're standing right in this room, your feet are hip width apart, that you're shifting to say, where am I located in this room, rather than is what is going on with me. So with that, I'm just going to go back to say what sort of catapulted me as I look back to the chronic resilience. And I am a person who I think that there's options and there's got to be a way, even when it doesn't seem like there's any way. I started Tai Chi with a group of seniors. I knew a woman who was head of a senior center and started and asked if I could watch. She said, oh, you can participate. So I went to, with my cane, difficult to get into class just for me walking because it was difficult walking at that point. And here was this group of 12 or 15 women and men, and they were, most of them 40 or more years older than I was. And I realized as we just started, it wasn't even 10 minutes of the class, my balance was the worst in the room. Well, that was humbling. It's like, oh my heavens. I knew it was bad, but look at these people and they've got vitality and energy. And I thought, I don't know if I can do it. You do this self-talk and doubt. And so when I left, by the time I got home and I thought about it a little bit, I was in that I'm not sure, the doubt. And then I thought, let's breathe, Arlene, get a grip. And I changed the way I was thinking. In my own head, I thought, I've got to find a way to be positive about this so I continue. And I thought, I want to be like them when I'm their age. I want to be like them. And that change of my mental shift switched me into going back to that class, being okay with sitting in a chair. People were wonderful. And so that's important too, in terms of where the mental state is.
Absolutely. Yes. And you're talking about distinguishing that substantial and insubstantial as you're standing and feeling, where is my weight? Which side has the substantial, which is the the full side, which is the empty side. You know, we talk about it in different ways, but distinguishing substantial and insubstantial in your movement is actually very key in building balance, right?
Right.
But as you're talking, even it helped you in your life of distinguishing what's really important, what's really substantial here, where do I want to go with my life, right?
Right, right, yes. And this thing, I'm not sure I have the answer, but this is, I'm learning something really new, that substantial, insubstantial has profound impact for Tai Chi, as profound impact outside of Tai Chi in daily life. For anybody can improve their walking and their balance, wherever their starting point is. So I do practice walking with my students forwards and backwards in class
Nice.
every time, regardless of how long people have been doing Tai Chi, focusing on that standing leg, that's substantial. It's got 100% of the weight. So it's rooting like a tree. It's stepping up. So rather than forward, it is rooting into the ground. And that substantial leg then starts to give where the balance is. And it gives you the ability to pick up the other leg, the insubstantial, and move that forward. So that's really key in not only walking, but it helped in terms of alignment. Another principle in terms of walking that really changed my life. That walking, what I did, I put my hands up because I had a little hallway in my apartment, and I would come home from class and I would just see if I had so much fatigue, but I wanted to say, okay, let me spend 10 minutes and do that walking and just pick up that foot and then set it down. And even before that, I would sit in a chair and I would visualize. So I did the visualizes when I wasn't able physically to actually do the movements. When I started to be able to, then I slowly did it a little each day, every day. That's putting in the time, as you
Putting in the work, right? And that when I talk about substantial and insubstantial with my students too, of once you start to really understand in your movement where your substantial leg is rooted, like you say, that insubstantial leg, you have the choice of where you want to put it. You can move forward or you can move backward. You can move to the side. And that's part of that life lesson as well, is understanding your substantial and insubstantial, being able to really know where you are. That gives you choices rather than just falling forward. And almost like what you said you were doing, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it to me speaks to when you were that executive trying to ignore what was happening in your body. It was almost like you were falling forward, just trying to push your way forward, you know, and that wasn't a choice. And
that wasn't a choice. That's right. Yeah.
You know, your body said, nope.
Body speaks. I thought I was listening to my body, you know, knowing that, listening to it. And when I was able, and particularly I think about New York in terms of walking a lot, and I played squash at the time, and you know, some sports and bicycled, but that's not the same as listening to your body and integrating, where you started out a little while ago in talking about the internal and the external, that you really listen. And it takes creating some stillness in your head to be able to listen to your body.
Right. And that's actually, you know, a couple of the 10 essentials as well of, you know, going back to use consciousness, not strength, you know, not trying to muscle through everything. That's one of the principles. And one of the other ones is seek stillness in motion. And I think that Tai Chi is one of the few activities in our life where we're encouraged to do that, you know, seek stillness and really feel, where am I? What am I doing? Is this where I want to be? Is it, do I need to move in a different way? So, you know, that stillness, that focus, I'm sure was something that really helped you in your healing as well.
Very much so. And that is key. The stillness, being present, paying attention, to where your body is without forcing. It takes a while to understand that because we want to use our muscles, we use our arms and our hands a lot. And so I think that also in terms of patience with ourselves, we live in a culture where that's not always highly regarded, and yet it's really important to have some for our own balance and our own decision making and creating that stillness. And Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, Tai Chi is often called a moving meditation,
Sure.
which is really good. But for people to start out, you can create that stillness by going for a walk or watching a sunset or intentionally breathing. There's an app now. I saw it. I looked at it not too long ago. There's an app. I don't know what it's called, but it's the sun, and it's 4 seconds. And when you take a breath in, that sun gets bigger, and then when you exhale, the sun gets smaller. And I was doing a session not too long ago, and one woman said, "Oh, I know that." And you know what? My watch tells me when to stand up. I even have something when I can breathe. So if you need a prop, to do that, I think that, but using our own body through Tai Chi is helpful. And I spent some time in San Diego as I was getting better, doing some Tai Chi, a lot of Tai Chi out there. And I had a teacher who was teaching some courses on Taoism. And one of the things that he was talking about was that he wanted us as students to, he called it be present, but to wander aimlessly with no fixed destination. And I thought, what? It's like, it sounded sort of lazy to me when I first heard that, wandering in the wilderness and that kind of thing. It's really been profound. I still think about that and mention that because what he was talking about, and that I didn't know then, but I learned through Tai Chi and the tools that it has offered me, is to be as well as do. It's okay to be. We have to learn how to. Tai Chi really helps us how to be right where we are, at this moment, which I realized looking back, I didn't really know how to do. And it's a lot nicer place to be than to always be trying to move forward. And I still have goals. I still use some of my skills, and I built my own Tai Chi business and I've done some other things, but in terms of the balance that I have and the health that I have, it's I didn't know it was possible where I am right now, that it was possible to be where I am.
And, I want to come back to that, your business. But first I want to talk about what you were talking about, be and not always do, but also that whole idea, which to me incorporates that idea, is moving from the Dantian. And for those of you that are not don't know Tai Chi, the Dantian is the middle part of your body. We say 2 inches in from the belly button, 2 inches down, and we move from the Dantian in Tai Chi. We say that that's the ruler, that's the guider of our movements. And if you think about it in terms of the lessons you were learning as you were doing Tai Chi, if we move from our core beliefs, if we move from our core, our life is going to be a whole lot smoother in rather than moving from what this person says or this person says or what my boss says I have to do, or that next promotion that I'm supposed to get, right? Isn't it much more calming to move from your core and move from your own core beliefs? I mean, do you feel like that was something that helped, Arlene?
I think absolutely is what the word that comes to my mind, and what you're talking about is essence. We all and each of us have our own essence, not somebody else's, to be like somebody else or to go after that promotion. There's nothing wrong with that in terms of achieving or moving up in a particular job or getting a job that you really want and to make a difference maybe in other people's lives. So that's good. But yes, it is, I think, it's not only core values, but it is the essence of who we are. And that if we can feel that in our body, stillness helps create that, I think. And one of that can be a hard concept. I go back and I mentioned it in my book, but I also have in my classes, which might be helpful to some of your listeners. I attended a seminar some years ago, and the seminar leader was talking about the ideas we have today are the same ideas we had yesterday. And tomorrow, the ideas we have will be the same ones that we had today. We keep rehashing the same thoughts and ideas day after day after day. And in order to move forward or even have a sense of, I'm going to say, being grounded and rooted, finding our essence, we need some new ideas. We need space. And our mind's like a closet. If we open it up, we don't get rid of some of the things in the closet, then there's no room to put anything else in there. So the same thing with our minds. And that's the letting go part where Tai Chi helps, that when we're talking about what's the choice for this leg, or this, the feeling that this is the substantial, or turning particularly with the core and doing the movement from the center. The center of our essence, our arms and our fingers are not the center of our essence. Our core, our internal energy is. So that's helpful. Breathing is helpful. It's like, how do we create that stillness? I think the moving ahead, the new idea, the what's ahead comes in that area of stillness. And so somehow we do need to, each of us create that, regardless of how we might do that within the midst of our busy lives.
Sure. Now, you talked about, the essence of who you are. And when Nancy said to you she wanted you to teach Tai Chi, you were like, no, I can't do that. Talk about that story.
Well, yes, this was my, for those who haven't read the book, my healer, Nancy, was just wonderful. I've been seeing her for years at this point, and she was going to build a new holistic healthcare center, and not only build it, but bring in practitioners, and a wonderful thought. And she said, I want to have Tai Chi there. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. I think that would be wonderful. I'll talk to my teacher and see if she might have time to do some teaching. She said, no, I want your energy there. I want you. And I said, I don't know if I'm ready. In my experience with Tai Chi, and it was pretty traditional, going back lineage all the way back into China in terms of teachers. The teacher told the student when they were ready to teach. And so when I was asked to teach it, I was like, well, I don't know that I'm ready. And she said, I want your energy here, you're ready. So I took her, it wasn't advice at that point, but she believed in me, and I went ahead and did it and took the risk into the unknown. I knew the Tai Chi, I knew I could teach. And my corporate, I'd done a lot of training, and I was good in front of a group, and I knew that the Tai Chi was going to teach. And so I started with 3 people on a Wednesday afternoon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was just wonderful. It was like, we started together.
Mm-hmm. And, that's a lesson too, of just believing in yourself. And she believed in you. She wanted your energy, and to believe in yourself and believe you have something to give other people. And, that's what I want to encourage people, that you do have gifts to give other people.
Right.
Believe in yourself.
Right? I think that's so important. Another thing along with that, you can tell maybe briefly by what I've said, most of my life I spent analyzing. If I was going to do something, I would read about it, I would analyze, I would talk to people, I'd do my homework, right, and then do it. Going to see Nancy in Chinese medicine, no, I did it first and then learned later. Tai Chi, same thing. Being a teacher, same thing. That's where my paradigm shifted. In terms of, I thought I had the confidence, but I didn't in terms of the unknown, in terms of what's going to happen, or what's could I really do that. And so my biggest, I will say, payoffs, maybe not the best word, but the it's not just personally fulfilling, but where I've been able to teach Tai Chi and make a difference in other people's lives at the same time it's enhancing mine, has come at times I've jumped off the cliff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what I call it, about jumping into the unknown. And one of the things that helped me with that same seminar leader, I was talking about stillness in the closet a little bit before. There were two things I remember he said. The second one was, many of us fear the unknown. It's scary. We don't know what's out there. And so we say, what if that? And what if this? And he said, think about it. Think about it. We should be more afraid of the known than the unknown, because our lives aren't all rosy. There's some things there are issues. It could be health. It could be relationships, things that are not going well. And we learn to live with them.
Right.
And we learn to, and that becomes who we are. So he said he was wanting us to change our way of thinking around it, to say the possibilities are in the unknown. We have to clear our minds, have some new ideas, and also be willing to take some risk, and with some knowledge. I mean, there can be some things that might not be safe for ourselves physically, etc. But we have to create that. And for me, it really changed. And it stems from the question you asked me about teaching. That was that, and saying, okay, I'm gonna go for it. Yeah.
And as you look back on your experience, you're lying on the couch, your world has been shattered. Basically, your fatigue is so intense that you really can't move, and you don't really know yet what's going on. You of course, of course, maybe that's my interpretation, but being scared of the unknown, that was real to you,
Yes.
that was very real. So, that story of being able to take one step at a time and moving forward and being resilient, and actually having that paradigm shift of now, maybe I'm not afraid of the unknown. I've been through kind of that world now, and now the unknown might be possibilities,
Right.
I think that's what your book, what your story really signifies, is that you can get through that.
Mhm.
Things happen and they're not fun, but you were able to take one step at a time and move forward. And I think that's why you wrote the book. I think that's, what you and I are talking, is the sense that you wanted to give people hope
Right.
of, I've been in that dark place. And if you put the work in and move through and find your essence, find what's for you, you can be a healthy,
Right.
Tai Chi instructor 20 years running now, where who would have thought when you're laying on the couch that you'd be doing that?
I could not have visualized. Talk the unknown. I visualized myself doing what I'm doing. Absolutely, absolutely not. I actually wrote it because my Tai Chi students really encouraged me to do that. And the main thing that they were saying to me, many of them, were that they had been thinking about doing something for their health for some time, taking a class, eating better. And it was after hearing my story that got them up and out the door to go take a class. So the lesson there is that thinking about doing something and actually doing something to improve our health can be a very long distance. And we all can identify with that, because whoever we are, we all have examples of, oh, I finally did something. It's often not, I need to do this, and then you do it. That's not a lot of people's trajectory. So my experience and what I hope to do is to inspire and motivate with people, and encourage, and have people feel they're not alone, in terms of difficulties and facing difficulties, and to take one step. It can be small. Take that one small step, whatever it is.
Yes, thank you. I love that. I want to open it up just a little bit if anybody has any questions. I know that your book, Arlene, is actually available on a couple different, well, the book is available on arlenefaulk.com, correct?
You can order it through there, and you can get it on Amazon. You can also go to any of your local bookstores can order it.
Awesome.
So if you want to go where you are and that you want to support your local bookstore, which a lot of people have told me that they have done, which is great, then they can order it for you. It's not likely going to be in the store, but they can get it for you easily. There are all the places you can order it are on my website. So you're right, Dianne, it's arlenefaulk.com. Yeah. Or your local bookstore.
Excellent. And, you know, one of the things that I do with Open the Door to Tai Chi, that as I encourage people to try Tai Chi, and I want to get your take on this, is one of our, it's not an underlying principle of Tai Chi necessarily, but it's an underlying principle of Open the Door, is perfection is not the goal. Yeah. That it's the goal of doing Tai Chi is to be the best that you can be, you know, to allow it to help you to be the best you can be, not to be a perfect practitioner. What's your take on that?
I like the word you just said, allow. Allow, not push. And yes, I agree with you that it is, if you learn what substantial and insubstantial means and how that feels in your body and what it does for your body when you're walking, that is an amazing lesson in learning. So it's not about perfection and doing the moves perfectly or like the teacher necessarily. I tell my students when we start a new class, I have two expectations and only two for the class and for you. And one is to keep your mind in the room as much as you can, as much as possible. And the second is to listen to your body. Nice. And both of those are challenging. And so we will mention them again in class because somebody say, oh, you know, if you're doing walking or thinking about what you're having for dinner, I just say, if your mind wanders out of the room, then just bring it back in. And that we have to remind people, particularly new people of Tai Chi, that it's not about doing it perfect. It's not about just watching the teacher. It's about listening to your own body. And that's a process of learning. And Tai Chi can help us get away from perfection, I think, for those of us who are tending to want to just do that and do it perfectly rather than just be, yeah.
Right. And one of my experiences when I started in martial arts, I started actually in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And, you know, that's wrestling, yes. Rolling around on the floor. And I was very much a perfectionist before I went into that class. And I had been successful in life with that perfectionism. And what's fascinating, what I really learned in that class was that failure was something to learn from. And that I had never embraced that idea of learning from failure. And that was a lesson I got from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is as I lost matches, as I was not perfect, I was actually learning how to be better. And if I had been winning my matches, I might not have taken the time to learn to be better. So, you know, that's part of Tai Chi as well, is don't focus on perfection.
Right. Yeah. No, excellent point. I maybe have had a little advantage in my teaching because I'm not going to be the perfect, like a ballet dancer or the smoothest. You know, I went through a time when my legs were really wooden and it was not flowing. And so it's not, say, the most graceful. And so I will say that to people that, you know, I will do this and demonstrate and be on my hand on the back of a chair in terms of stability. And I will demonstrate some of how, in terms of movement or lack of movement I had, and just to take a breath and just to be where you are. That's part of Tai Chi learning also, is the failure and failure is not a kind word in our culture.
Yeah.
And yet we all go through it and we doubt ourselves, even if it's not failure, that we're not good enough or, so I think Tai Chi can help with the teachers like you and I do, saying, do what you can. And it's all learning from where you are, not about perfection.
Right, right. Now, one of the questions that I've had some people ask is Tai Chi the be all and end all? And they don't say it that way. Okay, they don't. Then that's really behind the. They're like, are you saying that I should just not take medication, or I should just not go to the doctor, or anything like that? And I don't want people to think that that's what you're saying. I don't want people to think that that's what we're saying at all. You spent a lot of time with lots of different journeys throughout your MS experience, right?
I did throughout the MS experience and even today, and I'm asked, I am certainly an advocate of being smart about as much as we can in terms of what we do, what we put into our body in terms of medications or food, the drink, but an advocate of using Western medicine and using Eastern medicine that they are not opposites. We're talking about Tai Chi is part of the Chinese philosophy and the way the body is looked at in terms of the lineage, yoga up through the lineage in India. And you wouldn't want to use those if you fell on the street and broke your arm. You want to go. You want to go to the emergency room. So I think there's room for both, and that they can be very complementary. And the nice thing is, in today, not everybody, but has it come a long way in terms of medical professionals, etc., really embracing different approaches and both Eastern medicine as complementary. And it used to be holistic. That word's not used so much anymore. It's more integrative, I think, in the integrative medicine programs. And so the one thing I do want to say, when you say end all be all with Tai Chi, your instructor is very important. You need to connect with your instructor. I've had people say, I went into a Tai Chi class, I didn't like it so much. They were doing all these moves. It was called a form, and they said just follow, and I didn't know what I was doing. And so do a little research if you can and find an instructor who's going to take the time, like Dianne and I both do. I think Dianne is an instructor who will take some time talking and working with students on the fundamental essential principles of Tai Chi.
Exactly. I mean, that's how we started this of, Tai Chi is not an aspirin. You have to put the work in, and you have to understand those underlying principles. And yes, your instructor should be able to explain those underlying principles and help you start to apply them. And that's why I wanted to do this webinar, is to show you those underlying principles, not only helping you in Tai Chi, but as you learn them, they help you in your life too. That's what I want people to get an idea of, that Tai Chi is not just for the classroom. Tai Chi is for your everyday life.
Absolutely. That one of the first ones, and still to this day, that suspension of the head. I use an image of a invisible string that's just lifting us up from the top center of our head, sort of suspending that loosens up the spine, and walking. And I pass that on to people, my family and friends, who say this is really helpful when I'm walking or seated, because we can tend to be when we're seated, that it's helpful in our daily life. A lot of Tai Chi principles are. So yes.
So I had a question here about, someone says that, Pam, you said, as someone with MS, I've not been able to find a Tai Chi class near me. I've taken a few Tai Chi classes and would like to learn how to teach. Can you please advise how to get started down this path? Well, certainly, Pam, part of, if you go to taichisystem.com, we do help people learn how to teach Tai Chi. So that's the Open the Door to Tai Chi system. TaiChiSystem.com is the website. And we also have instructors all over the country, actually all over the world, that, if you let me know where you are, we might be able to connect you to an instructor. And if you're in the Chicago area, you have the opportunity to learn from Arlene.
Yeah.
She does classes in Evanston, she told me, and classes in actual Chicago proper. So that's awesome. And Dianne, you said, this is not Dianne me, it's a different Dianne. Says, I need a push. I'm an aging fitness instructor dealing with my own aches and pains. Have an open invite to teach at our local YMCA. I'm willing to give it a try, but I have no idea where to start or how long the class should be. People are actually starting to contact me. Well, Dianne, that's so much like Arlene's opportunity. You have an opportunity to help people. Take that step out, and you already know more about Tai Chi than your students do. Take confidence in that, and know that, if you have taken that Open the Door certification, you know what you're doing. You have the opportunity to help people. Take that step, and you'll actually learn from your students as well. Don't you find that, Arlene?
Absolutely, absolutely. And if she's a person, if you're a person who, make an outline. If I think that it's good to know where you're going, and so what you want to cover. If you don't cover everything, that's fine. I did that, and I remember, this is just an example why it's good to get started, what Diane's talking about. In my first, the 3 people, one, we did some pivoting into the bow and arrow and walking, and we were doing pivoting with the ankle. She had no cartilage in her ankle and couldn't pivot. So we adapted it, and we spent, I went off the outline a little bit, and which was fine, and everybody was willing. And so we spent time adapting and looking at our movement forward and backward and how we can adjust. And it helped everybody. Because just in terms of the principles we were taught. One had a fused spine, and so she had rotation problems from the center. So what do you do when you have some limitations? Right. And we worked on those. So make an outline, but be okay varying from that. That's okay. And I think you can tell your students that, not that they're going to look to you, but you can tell them what your experience is, and in your own Tai Chi experience, and what you hope to accomplish, what the goal is. If there's a learning for being present, one thing you'd like to get across in that first class. I agree with Dianne in terms of just try to take the opportunity and just get started. Yeah, and look at it as fun. Yeah.
And too, Dianne, that we do have that Vimeo membership site for Open the Door to Tai Chi instructors, that I give you class ideas, and I give you starting points for teaching, and how to teach the underlying principles, how to teach being rooted and grounded, how to teach moving from the Dantian. So you have all kinds of ideas on that. And then, like Arlene says, take it and adapt it to the students that you have. Those class ideas are starting points, but then you adapt to your students, because that's that connection that we're talking about, of actually being able to help people. Yeah. So I do have one other question here. Pam says she lives in Northwest Indiana and would be willing to drive to Evanston. That's awesome. Wow. Arlene, what's your website again? If she wants to take a class from you.
So you're talking about the Tai Chi. Yeah. It is Faulk, Faulk, Tai Chi, all one word, FaulkTaiChi.com.
Okay, Faulk Tai Chi.
You can contact me through that. Feel free to, my email information's on there. You can get me through my website, but I'd love to be in contact with you. Be great.
Yes, that's awesome. And I plan on doing that as well. Sometime I'm going to visit Chicago, and I'm going to visit Arlene's class. I'm going to visit, actually, Chris Cinnamon, our friend in Chicago Tai Chi. He's the one that connected Arlene and I. So that's kind of fun.
It is fun. Chris and I are colleagues here in Chicago. It's fun. I love that. Yeah.
Right. Let's see if we have One more. Oh, well, thank you for, we have some people just saying thank you for us. And I want to say thank you to you, Arlene. And I want to encourage everybody to go purchase the book. You know, she's told you a little bit about the story, but really connecting, as she said, one, you get to be, what was your words, Arlene? You said the reader is in the moment with the author when you're actually
Right.
reading.
When
And
you're
that,
actually reading.
and that's, you really do need to do that. You'll enjoy the book, and you'll be encouraged by it. You know, that's my hope, is that you'll be encouraged by it. So falktaichi.com, you can get in touch with Arlene. If you want to get in touch with me, it's at taichisystem.com. My email is Dianne@taichisystem.com. So if you have questions for me about Tai Chi, I would love to answer those questions. Arlene, thank you so much. I'm glad that we've had the time to connect, and we will continue this relationship. So any last words for our audience?
Absolutely, Dianne. Thank you for the opportunity, and again to everybody who has joined us today. And hopefully, I would just say, if there's some new thoughts, you know, maybe this was a time during our talk together that there was stillness created because we're listening, and you had one or two new thoughts. So if that's the case, maybe you'll be able to take one step, regardless how small or big, doesn't make any difference, forward. And through Tai Chi or otherwise, and Dianne and I are both resources to help and be sounding boards, and Dianne's got a lot of good resources in her Tai Chi system. So people aren't alone. I just want to say that you've got resources, and that we can be of aid, and even answer questions. So thanks, Dianne, for all you're doing in the world of Tai Chi and in health and aging health and everything related. Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you.
I look forward to more work with you. Yeah.
That's right. I look forward to it as well, Arlene. And thank you for everyone for coming today. And I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you later. Okay. Bye-bye.